welcome. My name is Chris Fernari. I'm the editor of Brewbound, and this is our final stop on a week-long tour here for our Brew Talks Southeast adventure, I guess. We've stopped in Atlanta and Durham, North Carolina, and now here at Devil's Backbone in Lexington. So we're live streaming this event as well for those who are curious about the cameras back there. So there's some folks watching in, tuning in on their computers at home. To my right is Sam Krickenberger. He is the Director of Economic Development here in Rockbridge County. Right. And to his right, is Dennis Burnett. He's the Executive Director of the whole region here of Economic Development for the Shenandoah Valley Partnership. And they've been kind enough to join me today to kick things off here tonight. To talk a little bit about beer's role in urban development and just sort of working with craft breweries to, sort of build, something similar like we have here at Devil's Backbone. Sam had a big role in helping Devil's Backbone get started. So he's going to kind of share his insight, and then Dennis will be able to add a little perspective on working with craft breweries and, other organizations that work alongside craft breweries on a more regional level. But I'd be remiss if I didn't call out some of our sponsors who make this trip happen. Crown Beverage Packaging and Vicinity Brew. They are the folks that have allowed us to rent a couple SUVs and do all this driving through the Southeast. So thank you to them. And thank you to Devil's Backbone, obviously, for hosting us and providing us with some fine, tasty beers this evening. So how about a round of applause for all those folks? So I'll start with you, Sam. Why don't you kind of share the story of Devil's Backbone a bit and talk a little bit about your role in getting this thing built and helping them to get started.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I brought a visual. I don't know how this is going to show up, but this is really an important picture. It's a groundbreaking for this project. So I'm always excited to share this. We love to see dirt get turned over in Rockbridge County, whether that's a new business development or something going on in the farming community. And this has been a real exciting story for us. Steve Crandall and I met probably late summer, early fall of 2010. It was kind of a fortuitous meeting. Steve was really working hard to expand his operation in Nelson County, which we certainly appreciate. They were having some issues with sewage disposal in that area, and the engineer on the project was a friend of mine and said, I'm running into some trouble down here. Why don't you get in touch with these guys and see if there's something you can do over here in Rockbridge? And so Steve and I met, tried to express the merits of coming into Rockbridge, and we looked at a lot of properties. And the property that we're on now is actually acreage that the county owned. So it was a property we were able to work a deal with and convince him that Rockbridge was a good place to expand the operation and get the oak post started here. So it was pretty cool. From a county perspective, we're looking at investment and job creation. And I don't think anybody really realized where this project was going to go at the time. Maybe Steve, in the back of his mind, had some real good ideas. But what he came to us with was he was going to make about a $4.5 million investment in improvements on the property and the machinery and tools that were going to be applied, which of course for us are tax dollars. And he was hoping in about 3 years to create 10 jobs. So we put a performance agreement together. We put 12 acres on the table. The acreage was worth about $403,000, and set up a performance agreement that guaranteed that amount of investment and that type of job creation over a 5-year period. What we were looking at the time was the acreage. We put up a little incentive fund of a little over $16,000 to offset some of the building permit fees, use of the landfill, zoning fees, and some things like that. And then we also went and talked with our water and sewer authority. The Public Service Authority that provides water was just extremely excited about a brewery because they're a really high water user. And so based on some of the things that they looked at, they actually waived certain availability fees for the project because they knew they'd get those fees back over time in the use of water. Thank you very much. And one of the real interesting things was that actually the Maury Service Authority that has their waste treatment plant, they started looking at what the discharge was going to be, and they got really excited. And those guys don't get excited very easily. But one of the benefits for this brewery was the ethanol in the discharge. And what we found out was we were actually purchasing ethanol at the waste treatment plant because it helps dilute nitrogen and phosphorus in our sludge and our discharge before it goes back into the Maury River. So we were going to get ethanol for free from this project. So for a period of time, depending on the quantities, that's a huge benefit for us. After a while, they'll have to equalize the flows. But in any case, they just saw some tremendous advantages in that. And then we started talking to other folks in the community. Of course, our tourism office was really excited to have a new project to market. The farm community was lining up for waste grain. We've got folks in the farm community that have started to grow hops for the brewery. So they're looking at value-added crops. That was a huge benefit for us. And so, the early meeting in 2010, the groundbreaking in March 2011, and by December of 2011, I was shooting out an email to the county EDA and the Board of Supervisors and said, 8 Point has been produced here at the brewery. So things happened really fast, and it was really exciting for us. And the growth has just been exponential. We actually, in just this past summer, in far less than 5 years, have reevaluated the performance agreement with the brewery. Instead of the 10 jobs, we had 26 jobs on the table. He's already got a second building underway and a pad for a third building. Talked to the Commissioner of Revenue about some preliminary numbers, and I don't mind sharing this, it's public information, but we're looking at tax revenue of approximately $50,000 a year with just the second phase going in. So that's exciting. Steve has made me look like a genius. I got to have more people that come in like this. So it's been really fun to work with for us.
So it definitely seems like Devil's Backbone is a case study for how successful these types of projects can be. Dennis, how about for you on sort of a regional level? What excites you about the craft beer boom and a whole region's ability to sort of grow around that and revive some communities? And this happening all over the country.
It is indeed. And first, I want to thank you all for being here today. And I also appreciate the fact that you saved the best for last on your stop today. So we appreciate that very much. Sam tells a really good story. And I think one of the things that's really, really important is if you look at time to market. When all of you guys are out there and you're trying to get to the market, you're trying to get there quickly, the one thing that we can offer really quickly throughout this region, and I have a large region that's about 4,000 square miles, and this is a huge growing industry within the region. The Shenandoah Valley is world-renowned, so we think we have huge opportunities, some other smaller operations that are starting to pop up throughout our region. But not only that, but it's also the supply chain and the initiatives. I saw some of the distributors here too. I mean, we've got great resources here, and we're hoping to enhance that even more. One of the things that Sam had mentioned about his tourism office, this is a huge tourist draw for us as well. And when we look at attracting companies, we're attracting companies from literally all over the U.S. and outside of the U.S. as well. And quality of life remains critical to us. And it's those activities that we have. It's always the first question is, where can we get local beers? Where can we get local foods? There's a huge farm-to-table movement, and as Sam had indicated, you have some farms that are becoming actively involved. Agriculture is still the number one industry here. We have a very diverse economy here throughout the valley, but ag is still the largest one. There are thousands of farms actually throughout the valley, of which less than 10% actually take their full revenue from just farming. Many of them, Steve may employ a handful of those guys that, basically you have that flexibility to be able to maintain the farm and work outside. And any of these crops that we can do, and I know that's an ongoing initiative at raising hops locally, but just yet another avenue for us to experience revenue growth and to contribute to the total coffers. We have the largest, we have the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 largest ag producing counties in the Commonwealth. It's a $17 billion business for us, and this is just yet another supplement for us as well.
So why do you guys think towns like, or counties like Rockbridge County or regions like the Shenandoah Valley are just so interested in working with craft brewers, beyond sort of the tax benefits and just what they bring in terms of job creation? What are the other sort of fringe benefits to having a craft brewery in town? Beer.
Yeah.
I get to keep a mug behind the bar, and I really appreciate that. But
A Packers mug, no less.
yeah, Green Bay, they didn't make it this year. But I mean, we're into business development. This is a business like many others in the county, obviously, but there's a lot of fun associated with this too. You know, if we're bringing prospects and looking at other opportunities in the county, we're going to bring them by the brewery too. As Dennis said, we're really promoting the valley, the quality of life, and this certainly contributes to that. And interestingly, you know, when we were going through the county processes, we had some concern that folks were worried that the county was promoting, you know, the sale of alcohol on public property. Never heard that in the public processes at all. Everybody was just excited about having the investment in the properties and the job creation, and they've certainly followed through that. It's just been a very positive experience on our end.
Is it common to have a situation like Devil's Backbone where the county actually owned the land and was able to sort of offer that up as an incentive?
Well, it would be in any locality that has property. And, you know, Rockbridge County didn't have a lot of real estate available under their control. We would like to acquire more because it's certainly, and Dennis is very familiar with this, it's a lot easier for us in local government to do a deal with somebody when we control the property. We would equally try to help facilitate the sale of private lands. Our office markets public and private properties, and so we'll try to facilitate the development of businesses on both public and private properties, but it's certainly a lot easier to deal with property that you control.
And I forgot to mention this when we started, but if you guys have any questions for these folks up here, you can get them to me on this iPad one of three ways. You can email ask@brewbound.com, or you can tweet us using the hashtag BrewTalks. You can also text it to 650-BREW411, and then we might be able to just send a mic around too if you want to do it the old-fashioned way. But we always like to encourage the use of technology to make things more difficult, because why not, right? Yeah, if you guys have any questions, fire them up. Yeah, Dennis, I'll kind of ask you, are there any other opportunities on the table for you right now in terms of the craft space? Maybe any other businesses that sort of operate alongside craft brewers? Anyone that's, you know, maybe in our audience today that's looking to work with either you or Sam, you know, how can they start getting those conversations going?
I have several answers to those questions, and I think we have huge opportunities here, huge opportunities, not just with the microbrew itself, but also the supply chain that goes along with it. Sam and a delegation from our organization will be going to the show in Denver. We want to make sure that we're helping to support the supply chain. What is it? Can we raise the hops locally? I mean, what type of equipment do you need? You know, packaging, all of those things. And, you know, we actually have someone that's doing packaging locally. I think you're doing with Carded Graphics, which, you know, you see the benefit of the microbrew. It spills beyond just Rockbridge County. You know, the next county over is actually doing your packaging. I think you guys have done some creative work on that packaging that's unique to your industry. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us. The great benefit for us, we're on the road a lot. I mean, we're out there, we're promoting our area. But the most interesting thing is that 2/3 of a community's growth is going to come from what exists right here today. 9 times out of 10. I mean, Steve had an operation in Nelson. You know, basically he needed to grow it. So it's right here. And we want to do all we can to cultivate the resources that we have and to try to help those existing businesses. And it's interesting to me to see more and more. The financing world has been very challenging for those of you that are doing startups or out there. I'm sure you know that. But we're seeing more opportunities. We're working with a group in Harrisonburg right now through some USDA funding. There's some opportunities there. We, as an office, do try to serve as a one-stop, you know, shop for you. I mean, Sam had mentioned some very, very important things about, you know, water and sanitary sewer, you know, and how that fits into your business plan, but also making sure that we have that supply chain to back you up. And I guess the final thing I would say, too, is that, you know, when we're out there promoting, it is always very well received. We host annual receptions in Richmond. We make it a point to serve local product. We make it a point that if it's not just our brews, but it's our food, we're a huge food and beverage corridor per se. So it's always beneficial to us too when we can serve those local products at our state and national events.
I want to comment about something else because obviously we want businesses to be successful. So we have a lot of business resources that we can connect you all with. And Dennis and I are not unique throughout the state, so if you're in Richmond, Chesterfield, there's somebody like us in your locality that's going to be happy, well, we hope they're going to be happy to open their doors and work with you, but if they're not, come to Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah.
But you know, the state has the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. They were trying to work with Sierra Nevada, obviously, ended up in Asheville, North Carolina for other reasons. I think the gentleman's son liked the Asheville area. Virginia Economic Development Association, I sent you a link to that because they've got a contact list for people like Dennis and I throughout the state of Virginia. So that's a really good resource. The Virginia Department of Business Assistance actually will help you with job assistance and will pay for job creation. Small Business Development Center, they'll sit down with you and help you develop a business plan. I mean, it's so important for us to look at a viable business plan when you're coming through the process, and they'll help you put that together, and just an excellent resource for people. Our Workforce Investment Board has on-the-job training money available, and we'll help with supported employment and workforce development over a period of time to get people started. And then, of course, Dennis and the Shenandoah Valley Partnership has a more regional perspective than I do. But there are a lot of resources to try to help you get started. And it's not just here, it's throughout the state. And so, you know, anything I can send you that's a helpful link to these folks, let us know. We'd certainly love to do that.
Definitely. So what types of things should some of the entrepreneurs in our audience tonight, what should they have ready to go when they come and have that first conversation with someone like yourself? I mean, do they need to have their business plan drawn up? You know, what if they're already an existing brewery and you know they're trying to find interesting ways to build a second facility or do something different? You know, what do they need to have when they're coming to you?
We'll start a conversation over a beer with almost anything, no information at all, and work it from there. But obviously a business plan is really critical if they're an existing business, how they want to expand, what are their ideas, you know, and we'll try to work with that, and we'll try to get them involved with the people that can help them be successful.
And what are you looking for when you're actually looking at those business plans? Are you looking for very specific ways that they're going to help drive job growth or
That's really critical for us. You know, at a local level, we need to know about job creation and what the value of that investment's going to be.
So those are the primary considerations.
That's certainly important for us.
Right.
And I would add on the, you know, one of the most asked questions in our office is usually on the financing piece. And some of those programs that are available, whether they're grant programs, there are grant programs available that if you're raising product on site, the value-added producer grants, the VDAX grants, you know, those type of things should be incorporated into your business plan. The financing, I think, is what hits everybody. And if you can go through those USDA, the VDBA, as Sam had mentioned earlier, they do have a loan program that is much more forgiving than some of the banks. I think if you haven't looked at those, if you're an existing industry or brewery or organization, VDBA has some great programs to help you accelerate your business growth once you have a proven track record, and it's a little better than what you would see under conditional financing. And ultimately what it is that they qualify you and they do your loan guarantee. They're your co-signer basically on that loan. So I would strongly encourage you guys that are existing and looking to grow to look into those VDABO programs, as they're very good. And I do have, I brought some brochures over there if you guys want to, you know, pick one of those up. But for those of you that are in Virginia, there are 12 regional entities across the Commonwealth. And I would encourage you to look for a regional economic development office. You know, ideally, if you're here in the Shenandoah Valley, we're a one-stop office. We're in Harrisonburg. But I would really encourage you to reach out to those local entities because they can point you to all these programs and kind of get you on the right track. And that's when that business plan is going to be critical, probably, in the finance.
So one question just about the financing end of things. What have you found when you're working with breweries? You know, have you found that they're underfinanced? Are they struggling with securing some of that investment to get started or grow? What have you seen?
That actually might be a better question for Mr. Crandall.
I can tell you we have two very small, I guess, micro brews. I'm not sure really how you would classify that, but we have two that we're working with now. Our organization is a public-private entity, and we do have a large banking sector represented in our organization. They have been able to qualify 2 startups right now, so he feels that basically with the USDA tie that they're able to do, that there has been some lightening of the requirements that they're asking for. So yeah, I think I'm not going to tell you it's great because financing is not great for anybody, but I think it's gotten a little bit better, particularly with the relaxing on the USDA stuff.
Sure. So we have a couple questions actually that did come in. How does the local municipality interact and influence the Virginia ABC to promote sales locally?
You know, I don't work directly with ABCs, but one of the things that's really good to point out is our past Governor McDonald did pass legislation 2 years ago that allows breweries to sell pints without food sales. So they're finally treating breweries like the wineries in Virginia. And so they've got a lot of support at that level, and which has been, I think, a huge boon, obviously, for the industry as a whole. With the ABC themselves, I don't really have a lot of contact with those guys unless, you know, there's some issue that comes up that we need to.
When you do have a project like Devil's Backbone that finally gets started, is there anything that you can offer afterwards to sort of help promote their business? What opportunities are there?
Well, we certainly do that. We do that through our tourism office. We try to put notices on what's going on with all of our websites. The Shenandoah Valley Partnership has a scrolling area where they promote businesses in the area and new things that are going on, so we certainly work with it that way. Anytime they have events, we make sure that information is circulated throughout our avenues, which would be the elected officials, the county EDAs, and other folks that we're in touch with. So, you know, we do what we can, but I think for us, really, our tourism office does the primary marketing for events. And, you know, and I think that's something that's important to mention with operations like this is a lot of our not-for-profits have certainly been in touch with the Crandalls, and they like to hold events out here because it's a great collaboration with hospice, Habitat for Humanity, and a lot of folks that have a terrific relationship with the brewery and good opportunities for events. And I know, you know, a lot of the brewers have connected with the ag community. They had a really nice fall festival, did a lot of food pairings with some local cheese manufacturers, some barbecue folks, and a lot of things that were going on, kids' activities, and, you know, it was really a huge community event. So there are a lot of opportunities like that.
So does having Devil's Backbone here make Lexington cooler? I mean, you're talking about the tourism. You know, does it put a spotlight on Lexington and help drive people to this area to come visit?
I'd have to say it does, definitely. Definitely.
And how can craft breweries that are, you know, in these areas that are trying to maybe revive themselves a little bit? I mean, we were just in Durham, and I think Durham's kind of going through it a little bit as well. You know, sort of. You know, they have a bunch of breweries there. They have a bunch of local businesses that are sort of involving themselves in the craft space as well, restaurants, what have you. How can that sort of sector make an area more desirable to visit?
You know, it's like the redevelopment of any area. When a nice restaurant comes in, better shops, a craft brewery, you've got different folks that are start visiting that area, and that's going to have some spin-off effect from that.
Yep. And I would just add to that, too, always keep in mind, too, the contribution that craft brewers making to the Commonwealth as well, because we have the sales tax program, you know, and that's a huge contribution to our coffers. And when Sam mentioned, you know, the opportunities that exist through local tourism offices, don't forget we have state tourism offices as well. So there's opportunities to promote your events and to promote these things through the Virginians for Lovers campaign. They can go straight to the VTC, the Virginia Tourism Corporation, and all that stuff, because I think the state will clearly acknowledge the impact of that sales tax receipt. So, I mean, it is definitely making a dent in the coffers there as well, and it's a huge draw. So I think you'll be seeing that more and more.
Right. Not everybody's going to be thrilled that a craft brewery wants to start up. You know, what happens when you have opposition from different groups that, you know, might see this as something that they don't want in their town? You know, how do you guys overcome those challenges and really convince them that, you know, this is going to be good for the community?
And fortunately for us, that has not been a challenge we've had to overcome. But I think any community is going to want to promote a successful business and job creation and tax revenue. And so those will be the kinds of things that you really want to discuss with those people.
And how do you get the word out about that to anyone who might be, opposing it?
I would just add to that too. I mean, one of the things that you would probably want to look at, it, particularly if you're starting from Greenfield up, and Steve knows this all too well. You got to find a place that's zoned and ready to go. You stir that controversy when you go and try to rezone something or get a special use permit, and to go into a district where you really might not be a fit for a neighboring compartment.
Where you already have obstacles.
And again, I mean, if you look at basically as public officials, when this is a by right use, there is no outcry, because I mean, basically you're trying to make that comprehensive plan work for a community, and so that would be all the more reason to go to a regional office or to go to Sam's office if you're looking and trying to figure out exactly what is by right permitted in that particular district. And I think this is being an industrial zoning, you're permitted for manufacturing. So.
Right.
Would you say that zoning is probably one of the bigger benefits that you bring to the table, being able to help with that? I mean, I know, especially in major metro markets, zoning can be quite an issue and a challenge for a lot of these startups. But I don't know about in more rural areas.
One of the advantages, I would say, for small areas like Rockbridge is I'm the Director of Economic Development, and I'm also the zoning administrator. So
that helps.
I can take you from start to finish if it's a good project and we're invested in it and it's got the merits with that. And actually, Devil's Backbone was a use by special exception in this business zone, so it went through a public process. And the fact that it was county land had go through a public process to turn those deeds over. But like I said, we were very fortunate. Everybody, whether they were drinkers or not, just really appreciated the fact that we're having investment in the community.
Right. Should more communities around the country be looking at the craft brewing industry as a way to touch on all these, or a way to hit on all these points that we've talked about: tourism, job creation, taxes.
Sure.
Should more communities be paying attention to craft and saying this is something we should get on board with?
I think they'd be nuts not to. Yeah. I mean, throughout the country, you're looking at the whole emphasis of buy local, and you guys fit in with this so well. I mean, it's just a perfect fit. So you'd be nuts not to be looking at that more closely.
Probably why you're going to Denver, too.
That's why I'm going to Denver. These guys are sending me there, and what we're going to be looking at is really the supply chain of that. I've already been in touch with some packaging companies, refrigeration. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for folks that I know that are manufacturing on the West Coast. We'd like to see them move to the East Coast. Awesome. Markets are here.
Well, certainly some good insight, and hopefully there are some West Coast brewers watching at home, and maybe they give you a call after this.
I hear there's a drought in California, and some of the craft breweries out there are
Plenty
a little concerned
here,
about the river supply. So we've got plenty of water.
Exactly.
Sam, Dennis, thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. How about a round of applause for these guys? Thank you so
very
much. We're going to break for just about 10 minutes so you guys can refill your glasses if need be. And then we'll invite Steve Crandall and Hayes Humphreys up here to get in the hot seats. Cheers.